Ponte las pilas con Rafa Villagómez. Presenta.
Hey everyone, welcome to season 2 of the podcast Ponte las pilas. I'm here with my good friend y amigo Chad Goodman. How are you, my friend?
Such a pleasure to be here. I'm doing great.
Thank you. And you know, Chad is the obviously the conductor of the ESO, or is it Maestro? Which one is it?
It's whatever people want to say. Conductor is the job. Some people like to say maestro. It's whatever makes people feel comfortable.
So either one works.
Yeah, or Chad.
Right, Chad. Or Chad. So obviously I wanted to have you on because, you know, the symphony is celebrating the 75th year anniversary. That's a lot of years.
It's incredible. It's a huge testament to the commitment that Elgin has had to the arts and to classical music. It's rare to find an orchestra of, reaching 75 years in this country. I mean, it really is, and so it's a milestone for us, and we're celebrating all year.
See, for all of us that don't know that's really good to hear. So 75 years is a long time to be around.
It's wonderful. It's a great achievement, and as we've been saying this whole season, our goal is let's push it another 75. We'll do what we can and pass it on, and let's keep it going.
Good. Now, if I were to say when you were in 5th grade, Chad's going to be a maestro conductor for a symphony, what would you have said? Like, is this something that you saw?
It's funny. It's not, being a conductor was not something I thought of as a kid. It wasn't even as a young adult. When you hear stories of famous conductors, very often it goes back to their childhood.
Right.
Gustavo Dudamel, is one of the most famous living conductors. There's video footage you can see. His parents filmed him setting up stuffed animals in his bedroom when he was a kid and conducting an orchestra of toys, to recordings. That's a fairly common story. It wasn't with me. Now, I started playing trumpet.
Right, you were a musician before.
When I was 9, I picked up trumpet. And so by the age of 13, I actually was very convinced I was going to be a classical trumpet player for my life. So I knew very early on that classical music was the path. But it wasn't until I was in my early 20s, until I was in graduate school for trumpet, that conducting became a thing, that a professor suggested I study some conducting with him, and he would give me free lessons. And so I just said, why not? But it was not something from early on.
Okay. So you started like at the elementary school playing the trumpet. 9 years old. That usually started a little bit younger too, right? I mean, some of these musicians now, they introduce music.
Especially for string players and for piano, really ages 3 and 4 is where that tends to start.
That's what
you're going to make it. With trumpet, it's a little bit different because when you think about it, with a brass instrument where you're putting a mouthpiece against your lips, you have to have teeth there too.
Yeah.
And when you're little, if you're too little and you're losing those front teeth, you don't have to put a mouthpiece against. There are some stories you'll hear of children who started maybe 6 or 7, but it's rare. I'd say 8, 9, 10 is a little bit
so it's because of the instrument as well.
Yeah, I think physical development.
And then you got to hold it up. I mean, it's a big instrument.
How
much does one of those weigh?
It weighs a couple pounds. It's not insignificant. We'll describe it that way.
Okay, so it's not an excuse.
You can lift it for sure, but I'd say 9 to 10 is sort of the sweet spot of starting the trumpet.
Starting the trumpet.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first song you?
Oh, I don't. My first lesson, my dad played trumpet growing up, and my grandfather. And I either did it for a career, but I come from a trumpet family. And so when I picked trumpet as an instrument, my dad gave me his old trumpet, and he picked it up again, and he still plays to this day. So that was sort of a restart for him. And so I worked with him, my first year before I ended up having a private teacher separately, but I played with my dad and he was able to sort of get me started.
Get it. So it's about 8, 9 years old. You start playing the trumpet.
Yeah.
Then you play in the band there for the school, I'm sure.
Exactly. I started playing in a concert band, which in America, that's sort of the most common thing when in especially the public school system. And you start out, if you play a wind, a brass, or percussion instrument, you're in the concert band. And if you play a string instrument, you're in the string orchestra. And they don't mix very often in this country. So I never got to play in a symphony orchestra, which is that combination of strings, winds, brass, percussion, until I was 13. And I had auditioned for and got accepted as the Maryland Youth Symphony Orchestra. So it was kids from all over the state coming together every Saturday to play in a full symphony. So I had never had that experience until 13. And my very first rehearsal, I got goosebumps while playing. And it was this profound moment. And like I said, 13 is when I knew I wanted to be a classical musician. It's because of that youth orchestra experience of like getting goosebumps from like making music with all these other kids who really cared about the music. And there was something about the sound of a full symphony of all of those instrument sounds coming together that just...
So I started going to concerts here over the last few years.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that, like, when you go there, like, it's like massaging your ear. You know, it's noises you've never heard in your life. And I mean, and we're hearing it from this side. I mean, when you're performing, it's different.
Yeah.
You know, you're hearing it. I mean, you got somebody next to you. So it must feel different, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah.
It's still a beautiful sound. And I'll never forget the concert we had with the mariachi group.
Oh, yeah.
In that I call it, I don't know, a fusion hybrid of the mariachi with the symphony. I'm like, wow.
Well, I think that is what's so special is, and you've heard me say, and I always bring it up to our audiences, and when I'm just talking with people in the community, the sound live of a full symphony of 80 to 100 instrumentalists, especially like here in Elgin with the ESR at the top of their game, coming together, there's nothing like it. You can't replace that sound. A recording, no matter how beautiful and high quality an audio recording is, it's not the same as being inside a room and getting washed. It's an overload. It can be really an overload.
And not only that, but I often say it's medicine. It's like medicinal.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's like a phrase that says, whatever medicine can't cure music, and it's so true. And I'm sure there's studies showing that if you listen to the right music, it helps you feel better.
Yeah.
It's like watching a good movie or a good play. There's something to it that music does to you as a human.
Yeah.
And then you think about it, like music, let's say non-classical music. We've all heard of songs like, wow, you just took me back to 1992 with that song, right? Same thing with classical music.
Yeah. Oh, and it is. And it's the testament to music. And for me, majority of what I listened to for years and years, even while I was pursuing and performing professionally classically, it was not classical music. I listened to a lot about, I grew up playing jazz.
Okay.
So jazz was important, but pop and rock and classic rock. And, I really explored a lot of music. I listened to so much, but it is, there is something so powerful for me. If I get into the car, let's say I'm running late for like a meeting or something like that, I get into the car, I will make myself an extra minute late because I need to set the music. And I feel like I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, no.
It is so important. It's so integral that I think we all want soundtracks to our lives in some way, right?
And we all have it.
We all have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listen to, if I go back to my early youth, I know exactly what to listen to.
Yep.
Stuff my parents listened to, right? The early 90s, I'm like, high school.
Yeah.
High school for some reason, I grew up in California.
Yeah.
So like, I have to listen to Tupac.
Yeah.
If I'm like, that's part of who I am. Like, you can't erase my upbringing, my music taste.
No.
I listened to a lot of reggae when I was in high school. Now it's so different,
Yeah.
I go back to my daughters, I put on like, they're the music they listen to, like Coco Melon, all these.
Yeah.
But it's so weird how the music just does that to you.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So you started there, obviously, in your teens, you're playing in the orchestra.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, we tend to focus a lot in this country on sports, youth sports.
Oh, yeah.
There is a whole other realm. Like, my daughter loves theater. She loves music. She loves sports too, but I'm like, there's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
And I think parents need to know that, like, maybe your kid's musically gifted.
Yeah.
You have to expose them to that. What would you say to that parent?
Yeah, I would say the more exposure to the arts you can give your children, just the better. There is something so powerful about the lessons you learn and how you develop as a human and a person through studying music, whether it's the voice or whether that's an instrument. I've done so much teaching over the years. I've taught maybe 50 or 60 private trumpet students, and of all ages, of all skill levels. And the one through line for me that happened with this and that I realized is even with kids that maybe weren't as naturally, it didn't come as easy to them, and they definitely weren't going to go into music professionally, was they learned self-discipline, to sit in a room and focus on something, on a craft, on getting better at something, on listening to themselves and saying, where can I improve? And also the ability to work with a teacher and teachers in this capacity where you're open to criticism and that's how we grow, is to not assume we're perfect and to be able to take criticism and someone saying, oh, you did it that way, that was good, but I think we can do it better. Well, try it this way. And so the skill sets developed from just pursuing an art, the social skills, because it is a very social thing, are just wonderful. The people I've met at this point in my life when I travel, pick a city on the globe, and I probably know a few people just through music over the years.
It's so cool.
I remember when I was auditioning for graduate music programs, I auditioned all over the country. I didn't stay in a single hotel. I stayed with friends or friends' families.
Well,
Every year I went.
You're staying with the wallets, right?
And you can do. We did that day last year. It was really special. Here too, but it builds community and
Yeah, so it has everything sport has.
It has everything
That's
sport has. Was very interesting for me to experience. So I ended up going to a music conservatory, the Eastman School of Music in New York for my bachelor's degree in trumpet. And after that is an incredible school, and everyone was so gifted. But I'd say within a few years, the majority of people that graduated with me were no longer in classical music. But guess what? They would all just, I guess I'll take the LSATs, and they'd ace them, and they're now incredible lawyers. So many good, let's just go into med school. The skills they developed and the way that
They transfer to.
it transfers, and for job recruitment, it's one of the most common things that I hear from recruiters is that people who have backgrounds in the arts are incredibly desirable, because whether they have all the skills in whatever tech they might be going into, that can be learned, but it's who they are and how they approach things and how they problem solve. The arts really set you up.
Music and the arts, it's next level thinking. Like we could all play a sport. I mean, I played sports my whole life.
Yeah.
But it's one thing I always say, like, I wish I would have played an instrument.
Sure.
I always say it's never too late, right?
Yeah.
But it's a different part of the brain too.
It is, and it's funny, you bring up, this is something, in my field, I'd say the most common topic of conversation when I meet someone casually, informally, maybe it's after a concert, maybe it's just on the street, in a restaurant, in a coffee shop, and I say I'm a musician, the most common thing that ever happens from an adult that comes out of their mouth is, oh, I used to play blank, oh, I used to sing, I wish I still kept up with it. It's so interesting that this is a hobby, a passion, a career, whatever it is, that people only regret stopping. I don't know anyone that regrets continuing with pursuing a craft like music.
And Bo, that's the power of music. Think about it. Like, we all sing in the bathroom, in the car.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about music that just comes very natural. And it's part of the human, obviously, like, we're social people. Who doesn't, dream of playing on a stage and it's all, and you look at like YouTubers now and all this, and it's like, music is so powerful.
Yeah.
It brings people together. It just, some of the most famous songs, were through people's difficult times. The composers, I mean, it's poetry, right? At the end of the day. And obviously that's more with the lyrics, but the classical, that's where it started. Obviously it started very, very primitive, obviously you know this more than me, the history of music and making sounds, but how it gets to the famous composers, right, that we all study about, the Mozarts, the Beethovens, and then how that evolves into, that's really the basis to what we have now, whether it's rock, and I mean, it all started with classical music.
It's all connected. Music development, because it was a need to express ourselves in a way that we just felt was not possible with just words alone. It was just action. And so music became that channel through which we got to do this. And so, and you're right, and I love that you bring it up, because when we look at the development of music history, when we think about Western music history, when we think about, because you have music, when you look to Eastern music, you know, and you look back 1,000 years also to what music was being made in China and the developments there. That's different from the Western classical music and how that developed, which came a little bit later. But as things evolved, this became everything. And what I love about, quote, I'll put it in quote, classical music of today, because it's an unfortunate term or label that I think throws a lot of people off. Classical music, what is that? Is that classical era? You know, it's just several hundred years ago. But like modern or contemporary symphonic orchestral music, the composers today are inspired by Tupac. They're inspired by Miles Davis. They're inspired by the Beatles. They're inspired by everything that's come because it all is this continuum, and you can trace it back, and it goes through Beethoven, and it goes back, oh, and then it's Mozart, and then it's Bach, and then it's this, and you're going back to the church, which is really where everything kind of started in Western music. Music was in support of the glory of God, and so it was, medieval chant and all this, and you can just, but it's all connected.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned about the church, because I was reading something like that, the Gregorian chant, and how the church commissioned a lot of these composers to do these symphonies for them. And then how that evolves into, more secular, and then it kind of takes off from there. I was, kind of forwarding a little bit back to, we talked about our personal taste in music and things like that.
Yeah.
How music gets to Mexico, per se, to the Hispanic community through the Spanish exploration, through Spain brings classical music to Mexico. And not only that, but the Germans brought the polka.
Yep.
There's a lot of music. People are like, why is it that there's Mexican music that sounds like German music? Because, Maximilian, one of the emperors during that whole era, brings a polka over. So a lot of the music called norteña, the accordion, it's it's crazy how that intertwines.
Yeah. And then seeing how countries develop their own flavor, their own identity through music. I think it's just always fascinating to think that in, like I said, this Western classical music, every composer is given the same notes, right? You have the same notes on the piano, whatever, to work with. We're very limited in what we have in our chromatic scale, yet you can, within several bars, very quickly understand, oh, this music's from Mexico. Oh, this is from Germany. Oh, this is English. Oh, this is American music. And how we're all dealt the same cards, yet the way that we play them, we're able to create an identity and sense of self through them.
See, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. Like Juventino Rosas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I never knew that was a Mexican combo. When you played it, I was like, wait, that's Juventino Rosas?
Yeah, Sobre las olas.
Sobre las olas. That's such a common vals.
Yeah.
Vals for quinceañeras.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
It's Mexican. And then, once again, you'd hear that playing on carousels and merry-go-rounds in Europe, Vienna. You'd hear it, but it was written in Mexico.
Yeah, that's amazing how, there's classical music everywhere you go. Obviously in Mexico, it's big with obviously regional music with the percussions, the bandas.
Yeah.
When you guys had that concert with Jose and you guys played all those ballads, it just was really amazing to see that with the symphony.
Yeah.
How that the music can always be arranged in so many ways.
Yeah.
Speaking of obviously the Hispanic, the ESO, the Elgin Symphony has done so much with the community.
Yeah.
Starting with that first concert with the mariachi, with the Day of the Dead. Tell me about that. How was that experience?
Yeah.
Day of the Dead concert. Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah, we did our first ever Dia de los Muertos concert here in Elgin. And as soon as I was appointed music director here, I brought it up, and basically one of my very first meetings was, this is something that I think would be wonderful for our community, a way we can serve. We're always looking at ourselves, right, as we are here to serve. That is
what the
symphony's role. And we want to connect. And we have such a large Mexican population here in Elgin.
Say 50%.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such an important, a special holiday. There's so much meaning behind it. Why not celebrate this with the symphony involved? And so it took over a year of planning, really. But this concert, I'd say, is probably one of the proudest musical achievements or career achievements in my life, was putting this together. And to bring together, we brought in Jose Diaz to sing, and we commissioned an incredible composer and arranger to arrange all these classic ballads and boleros for solo voice and full symphony. So it was the first time they were ever performed like that. And we worked with BFH, with the folklore.
Yeah, that was amazing. They came out and sang to that.
And we had dancing, we had singing, we had full orchestra, and we had a hall packed, the Hemmens, with people who, for the most part, had never been to the symphony. It was remarkable, and the reception, so many people afterwards when we're walking out and talking to people in the lobby, I can't believe this is, like, we didn't expect this. We didn't even know what to expect, but like 80 people in an orchestra, full orchestra. Like, I can't believe I didn't bring all of my friends. Next year I'm bringing my family. And so everyone was, next year,
Yeah, I think I told you too, but I told Mark, I'm like, you don't know what you just did. I'm like, this was amazing because of how special the day is for people. Some of the songs you guys played were songs that these people connected with their grandparents who are no longer here, their parents, siblings, friends,
Yeah.
and just to see the whole culture aspect with the BFH dancing, it was amazing. It was amazing.
You know, as we know so much, once you educate people in a community on things, this, it works both ways. And I say this because, I mean, we had in the lobby, we had an ofrenda for the orchestra and the Elgin Symphony administration and staff, which a lot of people in our orchestra did not grow up with any connection to Dia de los Muertos, but we got to explain to them and share, and they got to see how meaningful this was. And many of them, we had lots of musicians when we explained what an ofrenda was, and they go, oh my goodness, can I include a photo and, you know, piece of jewelry from my mother or my grandmother or this and that? And it works both ways.
It does.
We grow.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The ofrendas I think that's what really brings everybody together. Because there's nothing like, you know, people die, like, well, they're not going to be forgotten if you keep remembering, though.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing things like this, like,
Yeah.
this is what makes the music, the connection to our past, too.
Yeah.
And our future. I mean, there was a lot of young kids there.
So many.
Obviously, I took my daughters, and
Yeah.
they were like, oh, this was so cool. You know, obviously, the dancers helped with the ballet, that cultural piece. And then just seeing the symphony and how, just seeing like their body, like they love playing the music, and because it's not music they play all the time.
No, they loved it. I'm so glad that came across to you, and I know it did to other people, but the musicians had such a good time because it was a program of music, majority of which they'd never played. And once again, just a testament to them. They played the style so beautifully. They really got it sort of internalized and were really feeling it in you know, every part of themselves. But there was so much joy.
Yeah, and I think that when you're seeing somebody who's not Hispanic playing these songs,
Yeah.
there's something to that. Like I was just seeing a concert. I think Metallica was in Mexico.
Yeah.
And they started playing La Chona. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I didn't see that. No.
The crowd went wild. It was like, what? Like Metallica playing like these just cultural songs and that's kind of the feeling I got, like, wait, Chad's conducting, you know, Bésame Mucho and artists. That was okay, yeah. I'm like, they're playing our music, you know, but it's everybody's music.
But it's everybody's. And once again, why it's so hard to label what is classical music. Like, what was that? And I talked about it with the audience. I said, what is this? It's, you know, is this concert classical symphonic music? Is it traditional Mexican music? Is this boleros? What is this? Is it mariachi? It's everything.
It was everything. You almost had to take the classical word out of there, right?
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
This is just music.
Yeah, it's just music. It's music.
It's music.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. Did you have a good time? Was it great? Yeah, then it's music.
It's music.
Yeah, sometimes we try to like put a name on something, and it's like,
Yeah.
and that sometimes like it gets you like thinking. It's like, no, it's music.
And that is something that is sort of a challenge when we talk about the subject, which is so common all across the world, but especially in the country nowadays here in the US, which is the relevancy of classical music. How do we make it relevant? How do we make people of today care about this music? It's something we have to talk about that the majority of other genres of music don't. You don't hear rappers talking about how do we connect more with everyone? How do, you know, country singers going, why aren't we connecting with everyone?
They're already, yeah.
You know, they have a massive fan base. Everyone has a massive fan base. Classical music, we have our diehard fans.
Yeah.
People that grew up listening to it is a lot of people who studied music. Really, the majority of people that you end up coming to concerts and are enthusiasts, it's because they understand to some level. They played, they sang in a choir, and they know how meaningful this is. But we are always trying to share and connect with more people. That is something. And when it comes to relevancy, dealing with labels is tough. There's a lot of baggage that comes with classical music. People will meet it, oh, that's not for me. Or, oh, I remember, you know, we took a field trip in elementary school and I fell asleep. Or what, you know, like, oftentimes it's about making an amazing first impression. I think that is our role.
And you only get one chance at first impression.
You get one chance as soon as someone has some preconceived idea, and especially if it's supported by their peers. Kids in high school who are, you know, it's such a critical age where everyone's trying to find themselves and there's their clique and what, you know, and if, of someone who might be interested in classical music becomes friends with all the football players who instantly just want to bash it, they might not give themselves a chance to explore and love it more because they want to fit in as well.
It's interesting
you
to
know?
say that because now that I'm going to the concerts and I'm telling all my friends, all it takes is like one person
Yeah.
to make it cool, and then it's
But
already cool, but it's just like it's such a thing, like you said. Well,
Yeah.
it's not rock, it's not country, it's not the modern music.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you have to get to know it too.
You just have to get exposed to it, and what's so special about it is it's music that just plays to just what it means to be a human. It doesn't matter. Because we of course work with singers often too. We're not an opera company, so we're not doing everything with vocalists, but we'll have lyrics. We have concerts. We do Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, full chorus, 4 vocal soloists. But guess what? That was in German. And guess what? It doesn't matter if you didn't understand German, because this is all universal, right? Music is universal. And so this experience of going to hear classical music is, you don't need to have an understanding of classical music to enjoy it. It's composers who are exploring what it means to be a human, and often many emotions, while a typical 3.5-minute pop song usually will focus on one. This person broke my heart. I'm angry. I'm in love with this person. Do they love me? We can all relate to that. A 30-minute Beethoven symphony, he's going through, I love this person. She doesn't love me back. I'm going deaf. I'm dealing with personal trauma. Am I going to make it through this? How am I going to deal with this? How do I continue? And you'll have 20 emotions in one piece of classical music. So it is, in some ways, to me, the most relatable music. But we just have to give ourselves a chance to say, if you haven't been to the symphony, let me go see what it's about. Let me go listen.
Yeah, even though you get one first impression, you got to go more than once.
Yeah.
Because it could have been a piece that was just like very dark, right? Or something like, man, I felt sad. I'm like, you're supposed to feel sad. It was a dark piece.
Yeah.
That we call it, right? Piece?
Yeah,
songs?
yeah, a piece, exactly.
I'm learning. Yeah. But it's so true how, the music just kind of takes you places. And you're seeing it more, obviously, like the Day of the Dead concert. That brought a lot of people that had never been to that. I know I invited a lot of people. They're like, I don't know what that was, but that was awesome.
Yeah, and
they didn't have words to describe it because they've never been to it.
And that's the thing. And what I think is so powerful about the live classical music concert experience is, everyone is in that hall for a different reason, and everyone's going to get something different out of it. It really is a choose your own adventure, or the adventure chooses you. You don't have a say how you're going to react. And there might be a piece on the program that is absolutely beautiful, and for some people, it's going to spark the feelings of love they have for their partner or their children or their family. And for others, it might be heartbreaking because it's so beautiful and it reminds them of someone they lost. Some people are showing up because they love classical music. Some are showing up because their friends invited them, their family invited them, they know someone on stage, they got free tickets, they don't know anything about it. Everyone's there. Some, they're lonely, and this is their community.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's community.
This is their this is like, people like going to the club, people like going to the symphony.
Why
is who they hang out.
And once again, when it's like, why do people come to a church? Part of it's community. It's a sense of place, it's a sense of being, and it's a sense of a conversation with something or someone or some being that they go, they feel what I feel. And that happens when you come to a symphony.
Yeah, it does. It's like going to a sport event, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're actually rooting for the same team, and there's something. The symphony here, like, you want to see a good piece. Everybody's clapping. That's an awesome feeling. And here's the thing, like, we all hear classical music. We don't even know it. It's in all in commercials. I remember Forever United. Was it Rhapsody?
Rhapsody in Blue. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, wait, I've heard this before. It was in the United commercial. They always talked about Moventino Rosas. Like, I'd heard this before. I remember I took in high school, I always remember that I took a music appreciation class.
Yeah.
And we went through like the ragtime.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, why does this sound so familiar? Chopin, for something, that composer for some reason always sticks out.
Yeah.
Was it Frederick?
Yeah, Chopin. Yeah,
Chopin,
yeah.
Chopin,
Yep.
there you go.
Yep. No, it is. I mean, it's so ingrained in so many of our brains, from commercials, from cartoons.
I would say cartoons, the
Disney
Disney,
and Looney Tunes, and all of those.
Full of classical music. I'm sure the Roadrunner had but it's there. We just never realized it.
Yeah.
So sometimes the musical has that, that it's there. It's a soundtrack, but we have never really paid attention to it in that sense.
Yes.
So awesome. So take me to, what's a day in the life of a conductor? How do you prepare for a concert?
Yeah.
Like, are you listening to the music you're playing before? Do you have like a pregame? Like, do you push-ups or dumbbells?
Yeah.
So what's a typical sort of?
So a day in the life is it's every day is very, very different. So for any given concert or any given concert season, as we refer to, which really follows mostly an academic calendar. Most symphonies perform starting around September, October through May.
I noticed
That's our
that.
season.
Yeah.
And in the summer, special events will happen. We'll do a 4th of July concert. We'll do some things here and there, but that's the season. So in prepping as a conductor, I'm having to learn all the music for an entire season. I might have 20 different programs with 3 to 4 pieces. Sometimes the mariachi program, we did 12 pieces on the program, 12 different pieces. I'm studying that sometimes as early as I can. So I'm having to prioritize sitting down with the full score where I have everyone, every instrument, every singer, whatever, who's going to be performing on that piece, all on the same page. And I'm studying it. I might study a year in advance. For Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, I started studying 12 months in advance of conducting it. And I'd spend, a couple hours a day for a few weeks. Then I'd put it aside. I'd focus on other concerts, other pieces, and I'd come back, and I do that throughout the year. So any given day, I might be studying for a concert I had that week, a concert I had next month, a concert I had next year. But it's timed by myself.
So when you say studied, are you reading? Are you doing this at the same time?
So sometimes, yeah. So what I do whenever I'm learning a new piece of music, I get the full score, I get my sheet music, and there's no markings on it. First thing, if it's a piece that's been recorded, if it's something from the past, which a lot of what we do is, I will listen to a recording and I'll just follow along with my eyes. I'll just turn the pages and I'll look and just make notes. Okay, that's what the melody is. Oh, the basses have a really interesting bass line there. Oh, that's a tricky spot. Oh, there's a big fermata there where everyone's holding and I'd have to cut off. How long do I want to wait before I bring the orchestra back in? So I'm just sort of making a lot of mental notes. Then I will go back and I'll start marking in the cues of what instruments are important. Oh, trumpet has a solo there. I need to mark for myself in the score. That's where I'm going to look up and cue the trumpet, and I'm going to do this. And then I start doing a phrase analysis. So I look at the skeleton. Is this melody a 4-bar phrase? Is it a 6-bar phrase? Is it an 8-bar phrase? Is it I don't know what phrase it is. And I have a way of marking. I use colored pencils for all of these. So I use different colors. So I use green and I mark it on the bar lines vertically where this is 4 bars, this is 2-bar chunk, this is an 8-bar. And it helps internalize the music and helps me with pacing the whole piece. And it also helps me get my head out of the score when I'm conducting because I can look down at a glance and see with my notations, 4-bar phrase followed by an 8-bar phrase. I don't need to look down for 12 bars. I've studied the music. I also know cue-wise the violins have as it passes to the oboe. So I mark up my scores. I'm always marking up new scores. And then I think about also the characters of the music and the adjectives. So I'm writing in my scores are just covered in writing like strings should be short here, should be biting, should be, punchy, should be soft, should be gentle. These are the kinds of decisions that a conductor is relied for, is how loud is loud, how soft is soft, what does fast mean, allegro, what does that mean? How fast is that tempo, how slow is that tempo? When we hold a note where everyone's holding, how long do we hold it? When it's cut off, how much space and silence do we give before we bring people back in?
Interesting. So you drive this, like you can move it fast, you can move it slow.
If they like you. An orchestra, and especially a great
So are they
orchestra,
looking at the same score that you're? No, it's their piece.
They're looking at solely their part. That's their job is to focus and play their part to the best of their ability. And my job, being the only one on stage who's not producing sound themselves, is that I have the best seat in the house for hearing everything collectively, and basically mixing like I'm at a mixing board in real time.
So you're like you're mixing.
I'm mixing and then pacing, and
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
For somebody's like, wait.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and then let's say the violins are playing a melody, and they get really excited, and it's marked to be forte, like a loud dynamic that they get up to. Well, if I know that 1 minute later there's a double forte, and 15 minutes later it's even louder, I know that I've studied this entire piece and the structure. I will do my best to keep the lid on the pot. So
how do you do that?
Through gesture, through eye contact. It might be as simple if just like cool your jets. It might just be this.
We do that. What do we call these?
Yeah, I mean these really are just gestures with the hand, physical gestures.
What do you call it? A
baton technique. So we refer to it as a baton that we use. So it's sort of my job to sort of pace things. And make all of those lots of little decisions so that we can agree that 80 people who have all dedicated their life to something, who all have strong opinions about how a Beethoven symphony goes, that we can go, hey, this time we're going to navigate this path and go on this journey this way. There's 500 other paths, and I respect that everyone has it. Come with me. We're going to go on it this way. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, that's something I would have never thought. Like, there's egos behind this too, right?
Of course.
Personalities of the musicians. Like,
Yep.
well, I've heard it this one. It sounds so much better.
And rightfully so. Everyone is an expert, and on that stage is an expert in their own thing. As a conductor, I think a misnomer things people would assume is, wow, so you know how to play every instrument. No, yeah, I wish. You can't. I learn everything I can about every instrument, though, and what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, endurance issues for a brass player, range limitations, how high can a violin play, how low can they play, what are the different ways that they can bow. Bowing up is different from bowing down. Some people don't think those are all marked, because guess what? When you start bowing up and you're starting at what's referred to as the tip of the bow, you're going from the place furthest from the fulcrum point to where your hand is. So if you want to get louder, you're usually going to start at the tip and go up, and you're going to increase tension as it gets closer to your hand. If you want to get softer, start at the strongest point and pull away.
And that's all in the score. That's all
It's not marked. None of that's marked.
Oh.
Those are decisions that have to be made
by the person.
by either the conductor, but usually within an orchestra, your principal string players will get the music in advance, and they will make the decision. So the leaders in each will go, okay, this should be down bow. This makes more sense physically to go up there, down there. But then a conductor can have a big impact on deciding, do we want it to bounce? Should they bounce the bow off the string so it's coming off every note? Should it stay on and stay connected? There's dozens of ways to bow a note. Just like there's dozens of ways a trumpet player can articulate a note,
That's amazing. All the behind the scenes and how much is. I mean, we listen to it. It's just like, oh, it sounds cool, but
Yeah.
it sounds really nice because of all the detail that goes into it.
And it's why the same music that everyone in the world, when they're playing Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, is looking at the same sheet music, the same notes on a page, and they can sound different. It's why there's 600 recordings of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and all of them sound different because every group has different approach to it, the leaders and the way they've marked things up, the desires of the conductor, the natural sound that the orchestra has, their strengths, their weaknesses. Tradition in classical music is a big thing. The Berlin Philharmonic sounds like no other orchestra in the world, and they play a certain way. And when you join that orchestra, you're jumping on a moving train, and your sound is going to become the traditional Berlin Phil sound.
Interesting.
It's fascinating.
Speaking of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony,
Yeah.
For somebody who's like not familiar with classical music, what's one piece that you say, hey, what's a good intro piece? Like, you know what, you should probably.
Yeah.
Is there a piece or a composer that you think would be like, hey, this is really good intro. This will get you into get your
And there's really no wrong answers, or there's so many right answers. I think a piece like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony is spectacular because we all know that. We all know it. But how many people have listened to the whole thing, right? That's the first movement, which is 10 minutes maybe or less of a 35-minute long piece, every movement of which is special, is beautiful, which, by the way, the other movements which are not as famous are still, like you talk about, you'll recognize them because they've all been in movies and TV and, advertisements. But starting from a place where you do have some familiarity, I think is a great move. And that piece has everything. It's got energy, it's got love, it's got anger, it's got joy, it's got hope, it's got defeat. Something like that would be really great. I love French music.
Okay.
The music of Claude Debussy, a piece like his called La Mer, which was a musical depiction of water and the power and the beauty of oceans and storms. And, just that it has that duality of a calmness and a tranquility, and he captures it in musical sounds, but then also terror and power. His music's really special. So something like that, like La Mer, is excellent. Chopin, his solo piano pieces are spectacular. He has so much. Chopin almost wrote exclusively for the piano. That was his instrument. Very interesting.
Many Hispanic composers, people, obviously we talked about
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh no. There's so many. So out of Mexico, you have Carlos Chavez, who was one of the most famous composers. Wrote a piece called Sinfonia India, which he was one of the first composers to take traditional folkloric instruments of Mexico and write. So the percussion section in particular is off the charts. It's maybe a dozen plus. Carlos Chavez, a dozen plus traditional Mexican instruments are in the percussion section alone. Spectacular. Also from Mexico, Silvestre Revueltas.
Okay.
A piece called Sense Maya, which is one of the coolest, one of the best ways to spend 7 minutes of your life is listening to that piece. It is
Because you played in Mexico.
mind-blowing. I've been lucky enough to perform in Mexico,
Puebla, I think?
in Puebla with the State Orchestra of Puebla, which was such an incredible experience. But yeah, there's so much music. I mean, of course, you have the tangos of Piazzolla out of Argentina. You have out of Spain, we get from overseas. You get so much. Manuel de Falla, incredible composer. There's just so much music.
Do you write any music, or you?
I don't. I did when I was a music student, and it was sort of a requirement that we have to write. It was just not something I spent enough time with, and I didn't have the deep enough connection to pursue it. I had so many other things I was focused on that I was prioritizing. But having that background in having the ability to compose helps me when I'm doing my job, which is basically reinterpreting. I'm taking other composers' music. We're kind of like a cover band, if you think about it.
Sure.
The symphony orchestra is a cover band. The symphony is not an individual entity who wrote the music you're hearing.
I mean, it's been around for thousands of years.
Yeah. But having a background and understanding what it takes to compose helps me in the process of interpreting someone else's music.
Great. Awesome. All right, Chad, the name of the podcast is Ponte las Pillas. So my question to you, was there a point in your life where you had to ponerte las pilas, which translates into like get it together
No.
to get to where you are today?
Yeah, there definitely were. They happened, I think,
There are a couple
when I
ways.
was younger. Yes, exactly. Well, I think as a kid, growing up in a area that didn't value classical music and having this be my passion was really hard. And I remember, as I said, I played in this youth symphony all through from the age of 13 all through high school. And we rehearsed every Saturday for several hours during the day. And I remember how hard it was for my friends who none of them played music would tease me about like, you're going to take our day off from school. Like you could be playing football with us. You could be doing this or that. I don't get it. Why are you going to, shut yourself in a room and do that? And it's like, so I think as a kid, that's a hard thing to deal with. There's peer pressure and your friends don't understand. So, but I really stuck to it. And once again, I found community. I loved going to those rehearsals where it's hard and we're getting, corrected on things. We have a conductor who's super demanding, but the friendships I built there were special. But I think that was a really important growth phase where I had to really go, no, I like this thing, regardless of what some of my friends at school think.
Yeah, it's
I like this.
Refocus that. So ponte las pilas and be like, hey, this is who I am.
This is who I am. And then my very first year when I started at music school for college as a trumpet major, I went through what's called an embouchure change. So right, the embouchure is where we put the mouthpiece against our lips. And it was very subtle, but I was playing very, very low, or very, very high, I think it was. It was too high, and basically, you, if anything, want a little bit more of the distribution to be on the lower lip, which is a fattier lip. We have more cushion here, and the top one is really what does the majority of the vibration, and if you're pushing too hard against the top, you get tired quicker, your endurance goes, and my teacher suggested I change, and I'd bring it down and get it more in the middle, and that, we're talking about moving centimeters, I couldn't play. Basically, I went back to being a beginner. So I just showed up at a very prestigious music school thinking, with my little ego of like, I'm so good, I'm so talented. And I had to basically start from square one.
Wow.
And that was dealing with ego and identity, because when you love something too, it's easy to associate your life with that. Like, I'm Chad, I'm a trumpet player. Like, that's how you introduce yourself in music school. I remember having a friend visit who was not a musician, and he was like, I love meeting your friends. Well, why do you always have to say what instrument they play? And I never thought about it, because that was the world, the bubble I was in. But so I had to sort of reassess and go, okay, I'm not Chad, the awesome trumpet player. Right now, I'm Chad, the beginner again, surrounded by people who are awesome, who are, light years ahead of me, and rebuild. So that was a very hard thing.
That's different, especially if this is what you do.
And this is what you do. And at age 18, which is once again still a very intense period of life, I was very thankful. I tried to and I took the high road, and I read lots of self-improvement books and on inner game of tennis, and all these books, Zen and the Art of Archery.
I know that book. Do you? Yeah, the Inner Game of Tennis.
Yep.
That's a book Pete Carroll used for USC football.
Yeah. Well, so it forced me, instead of giving up and throwing in the towel, I I'm going to overcome this. I need to love myself. I need to focus on building inner strength here while this is weak and this is growing. Have confidence in myself and who I am, and also not identify my life as my successes and failures on the trumpet are not my successes and failures as a person.
That's next level. And that's huge because that was a sink or a swim moment for you.
Yeah. It was
If you don't get through that, you're probably not sitting here.
It was really hard. So I'd say that was probably the most intense.
Great. Wow.
Long answer.
No, that was
not
impressive.
rapid fire.
That was slow rapid fire.
Slow rapid.
All right, here we go. Netflix or movie theater? A good movie.
Oh, well, let's be honest. Last few years, it's been Netflix heavy, but I'm excited to go back to theaters. In particular, actually, there's this movie Brutalist that I really want to see about this brutalist architect Adrian Brody plays. That looks profound. It's a 3.5 hour long movie. There's an intermission at the only in theaters. So I'm excited to get back. There's something, just like live music, there's something very special about experiencing a movie surrounded by a group and not just you and your loved one. Like there's something great to that. So
do you have a favorite Netflix series or?
There's
a lot of good ones.
Oh, there's so many good series.
Some more sweet.
Well, I'd say one of my favorite TV series of all time is Mad Men.
Okay, that's great, man.
Really spectacular, very intense, beautiful though.
If you were not a conductor, what would you be?
A very hard question. Because I've identified with classical music my whole life. So it's really like if I was outside of music, what would I do? You know, I also on the side really enjoy painting. So I feel like I'd still be in the arts. I think I would be good at like sales and things like that because of my skills, but I don't know if it would be my passion.
Okay.
So it's a tough one, but I think I would try and be like a visual artist.
Something in the arts.
Something in the arts. I also am fascinated with watches and watchmaking, so maybe I'd be a watchmaker.
Well, you're in the perfect town.
I know.
A yummy burger or un taco sabroso?
God, that's not fair. Oh, that's a coin flip. It depends on the day. I'd say I have tacos way more than I have burgers.
Okay. You more asada or al pastor or what's your go-to taco?
Oh, al pastor.
Al pastor.
Good al pastor.
Nice.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
All right.
I feel very lucky being here and now living in Chicago, but when I'm in Elgin too, it's like,
Yeah.
it's hard to find bad.
Thanks, exactly. And finally, what's your favorite thing about Elgin?
I love the sense of community. I think we're in an era where everyone is so removed and we're all glued to our phones, and we might have more information than ever and more online connectivity, but we have far less human connectivity. And Elgin is a city that still has that in great numbers. I think it's incredibly rare. I hate that it's rare, but I love that Elgin has it and exudes it. So when I meet people, there's just so much warmth and openness and hospitality, and everyone kind of knows everyone. And
The city and the suburbs.
yes, it's rare and it's special, and it's something I hope never changes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how can people support or get involved with the symphony?
Come to the symphony. Our doors are always open. We have so many concerts, not only that we do in the concert hall, which our main performing home is the Heavens Cultural Center in downtown Elgin, but we perform at the library at Gailboard, and many times we send smaller groups, chamber groups as we refer to them, usually string quartets, brass quintets, things like that. We perform in hospitals, schools. We have an amazing education concert series where we bring in thousands of students. But find us, go to our website, elginsymphony.org, check us out. So coming to concerts is the best way you can support, and bringing friends and family. Also, we are a not-for-profit organization, and so we really do rely on charitable giving, on donations, which are tax deductible, of course. So if you do enjoy what we do and believe in our mission, then and have a capacity to give, even if it's $10, $20 or up to whatever it might be, that helps us keep our doors open and keep our mission going. But there's just so many ways, and it really does come down to just awareness of the symphony and support of us, and being fans and advocates for the work we do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just new to the symphony, and I love every concert I go to. It's different. It's awesome. So if you ever get a chance, please do come check out Chad in action. And thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate the conversation. And there you have it. First episode of season 2. So,
an honor.
Ponte las pilas. Thank you, everyone.
Ponte las pilas con Rafa Villagómez. presentó